So it's my birthday next week, and my wife very thoughtfully presented me with a helical cutterhead for my jointer this morning. So it came in this really nice sturdy box, very well packaged. It actually weighs 8 pounds, so it's quite a big thing. This one's from ShearTech. It also came with some spare screws and some spare carbide inserts and something for slackening the inserts. So now I have to figure out how to install it in my jointer. I bought the jointer from new, so it came with an instruction book. It was maybe around 5 years ago, but anyway, I kept the instructions, so that's great. But these are instructions, of course, for assembling the thing. When you buy it, it comes in parts, and you have to assemble it. So it's got all these assembly instructions. Hopefully these assembly instructions will be sufficient. Oh, there's the receipt for it. Hopefully these will be sufficient to allow me to disassemble it, change the cutter head, and put it back together again. When I bought it, the cutter head was pre-installed, so I didn't have to do that part when I originally set it up. It normally lives by the wall, but I've moved it over to my bench for this. I think it'll be easier to get at the various parts and disassemble it and put things on the bench. I was really surprised when I moved it across my workshop that it left this trail of dirt. You can see the trail of dirt here. As I wheeled it through, it dropped all this dirt on the floor. And this is where it used to stand. I always use the dust collector, and I'm actually really surprised that there's so many wood chips underneath. My jointer was pretty dirty, so I actually blew it with some compressed air, cleaned up all these parts. It's not super clean, but I think that's it's necessary if you're going to start taking it apart. This is a Craftex CX086Z, but I'm sure the process is going to be quite similar for any kind of 6-inch jointer. They all look pretty similar when you look at the photographs of them anyway. If you don't have any giant-sized Allen keys, which I don't, these sets of Torx bits are pretty handy. Torx bits actually fit really well and work really well for undoing hex bolts as well as Torx. So I recommend getting those. I think I'm going to undo these two first and take this off, and then see if that allows me to remove the fence. Yeah, it looks like the whole fence will come off in a single piece. Look at that. That's easy. I always like to put screws back in their original holes, just so that A, you can't lose the screws, B, you can't forget which screw goes in which hole. Especially when the screws are the same width but different lengths, it can be quite hard to remember which one is which. So now that I've removed the fence, I can see that obviously there's the cutter head with the straight knives that I want to replace, and they're connected to a pulley, and there's a drive belt here which I guess goes down to the motor. I'm going to need to get these out, so obviously this piece has to come off next. This piece appears to be held on by 2 screws on this side and 2 on the other side, so we'll just take those out. And actually they're not that bad to undo. I guess I didn't do them up too tightly when I originally assembled it. I looked at the receipt, by the way. It was 5 years ago when I bought it. It's done really well in 5 years. You know, I've replaced the knives only once. These are carbide knives, actually. But you know, they still need sharpening. And it's just super difficult to sharpen the carbide knives. And it's so difficult to realign them afterwards. I've also had issues with these things, the threads getting stripped and then the knives not staying in the correct place and then getting a lot of snipe and all kinds of issues with this straight knife, as well as the noise and the poor finish. It's something I've been complaining about, I guess, for a while. So yeah, thank you to my wife, who probably got tired of me complaining about the straight knives and bought me this nice helical cutter head. So the 2 on the other side are out. There's that one. The bolts are quite long, like 4 inches or so. So that's all 4 out. This bit, yep, just lifts off very easily like that. Well, I've got gloves on, so... Oh, there you go. That wasn't too bad. And yeah, it's still around the motor, so I'm going to put that over there. Hopefully that will mean it stays around the motor. I think if you had the correct size of spanner, you could put it in here and undo this bolt, but it seems to be smaller than this 20 and bigger than this 5/8, and I don't have any in-between sizes. I do have lots of socket type wrenches, you know, with this kind of thing, but of course I can't get them in without removing the jointer from the base. So unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to go to the step of taking this off the base so that I can flip it over to get at it with a socket. So I just looked at the instruction manual that I used to assemble it originally, and there are 3 bolts, one here, and one at the back. I think to get to them, I'm going to have to take this panel off. So start with that. I can only imagine how much dirt is going to be inside here. Could be an avalanche of dirt. Let's see. Not really dirt, it's wood chips, but well, actually not too bad. But now I can easily see why there was so many wood chips on the floor, because there's no base actually. So very easy for wood chips to get down onto the floor, in fact. Let's get the dust collector and clean it out a little bit. Yeah, okay, I got it. Okay, so there's one bolt here and bolts on these opposite corners. And just to remind you, if you have a correct size of spanner, I think you could probably undo these bolts and remove the cutter head without having to do this extra work. So. But I think it's quicker for me to do this than to go down this tool shop and buy another spanner. So I can't actually see what size the bolts are inside here. I can only feel them. I'm going to assume that they're the same size as these other bolts. Maybe they're all the same. And I appear to have 3 Allen keys that fit. So one of these probably came with the machine originally, but of course it was 5 years ago, so I can't remember. Actually, it's way too small. So that's not the right one. I do have this slightly larger one. Maybe this is the one that came with the machine. Let's try this. Yes, actually that does fit, and it actually turns fairly easily. When I originally assembled this, I very wisely didn't do them too tight. Let's see, what size is this for you guys that want to try? If you want to do this yourself, it's not marked with a size. I'll measure it for you. So the size of this Allen key is 8 millimeters, and the Allen key that fits the other bolts I already removed earlier is this one, and you can see this one is pretty much 6 millimeters. So I tried for quite a while to get this one out at the back here. It's actually really difficult. I tried with a spanner. I tried with, the Torx bit in the wrench, all different things. I can't get it to move. I think that probably I have to remove the power switch first in order to get access to that bolt. So one more thing to dismantle. So I have now removed the power switch. One thing you should know is that the power switch is stupidly attached with a nut and a bolt. So there's a nut on the inside. So when you unscrew it, the nut drops down inside the machine. So just be aware of that. Luckily I have the side off the machine, so I just need to search around on the floor. There we go. There's one of the nuts there. Yeah, I'll have to find the other nut later. But that's not a very smart design. But anyway, now that I've got the power switch out, I think I'll be able to access that nut in the back corner. I will also say at this point that I wish I'd paused this job and gone out and bought the correct size of spanner, because it would have saved a whole ton of extra work. So you might want to consider doing that. I don't know what size the spanner is though. I just know that it's smaller than my 20 millimeter and larger than this 5/8, somewhere in between those two. So with the power switch removed, accessing this bolt in the back corner is actually pretty easy. So that's an essential step. There we go, 2 out. The last one is in the front here and is only accessible through the dust chute. So I have to get my spanner up inside the dust chute and see if we can get hold of that bolt and undo it. Whew. So that wasn't particularly easy. Lying on the ground, reaching up, my hand was very tight in the dust chute. But after several minutes, I did get all the bolts out, and so this thing now moves up and down. So I think what I need to do now is tip this on its side so that I can access these bolts underneath. Or maybe I can just slide it forward, actually. That might give me enough room to access. Let's just try sliding it first and see how that goes. You know, something's sticking out at the bottom that prevents it from really sliding. But I think I can just tip it on its side. I think that'll just work fine. Okay, there you go. Ah, yeah, there's a thing that deflects the chips down to the chute. Okay, here's the nut that I need to undo. Let me measure it so I can tell you what kind of spanner you would need to undo it. So I do have most sizes of sockets, but I don't have one that's 17 millimeters. I have a 16 and an 18, but neither of them work. I also have this kind of quite good tool, actually, which will adjust to any size, but unfortunately this thing prevents it from getting in there. So I think my only remaining option is to use these kind of pliers. So we'll have to just do it like this. Not ideal, I know. But I think this is my only option at this point. Yeah, it's not so tight. It's turning it quite easily. It's not really damaging the nut very much. I think this will be fine. Just a quick note at this point. So I've removed the bolt from this side. I haven't done this side yet, but this is already like very loose. So, you know, watch out when you undo the other bolt. Make sure this doesn't like fall out, because it could damage something. Once you have those bolts undone, the cutter head actually comes out very easily. Here's the old head with the straight knives. There's the new one with the helical, and they look the same size, which is encouraging. This one, oh yeah, this bearing block also is just a very loose fit, but I will need to get the pulley off. That might require a puller. I can see there's a couple of grub screws here. Let's take those out first. They look like they're maybe 3 or 4 millimeters. Let's try and find an Allen key that works for those. So this Allen key is a absolutely perfect fit for the grub screws, and it is 3 millimeters. So to get the pulley wheel grub screws out, you'll need a 3 millimeter Allen key. Interesting how it's all metric. I think the Chinese tend to use more metric than anything else. Okay, so Allen keys out. So grub screws are out, but it's not budging. Oh no, I got some movement. Hang on. Yeah, well look at that. I won't even need to use a puller. That's just come out. That's excellent. So the pulley needs to go at that end. And then we need to get these bearing blocks lined up with those screws, which could be a little tricky since I don't know exactly where they go. The bolts actually look like this, so they're like threaded rods with a slotted end, so you can tighten them up. So they have to go in first, and then you have to locate the hole on the bearing block and screw it in to the bearing block a ways. And then a spring clip, and then a nut. That's how it works. So the new cutterhead is installed. Everything's fastened down. I haven't put the fence and everything back yet, but I think what I'll do is I'd just like to give it a quick try and make sure everything runs smoothly and there's no issues before doing any more reassembly, just because, you know, if you reassemble it and there's a problem and we have to disassemble it all again, so I want to try and avoid that. So I'm going to remove this sticky tape because that might be a problem. It seems to be working okay. I mean, it seems to be, well, it's really sharp, so you've got to be super careful doing these kind of things. I should probably be wearing some gloves at this point. Gloves are kind of a mixed blessing. Sometimes they're a good idea, but it's not a good idea to put gloves near rotating machinery because the gloves can get caught in the machinery and drag your hand in. So best not to wear gloves when you're actually operating the machine, but when you're handling it and it's off, gloves are a good idea. Okay, let's give it a quick try. I'm going to stand back just in case. I'm only going to run it for a few seconds just for the first try. Yep, seems to work just fine. I don't see any issue with that. I did notice that there's some play. Let me just unplug it first. With it unplugged. So I did notice there's actually some play back and forward here. I don't remember it having that with the old cutterhead. I don't know if that's going to be a problem or not. I guess we'll find out later. So I've reinstalled the fence, and with the fence in the backmost position here, the last carbide tooth, this one, is just inside the fence, so it will actually cut the full 6-inch width. So that's great. We'll just get a ruler and just check that. See whether it's actually 6 inches or something less. That's actually 6 1/8, so a little bit of extra margin. Nice one. So all I need to do now is put back the side panel and put back the guard and things like that, put it back in its usual spot, and then we'll have to set the height of the outfeed table. So the outfeed table needs to be exactly level with the blades. Normally with the straight knife jointer, we'd of course adjust the blades to be the same height as the outfeed table, but on this helical cutterhead, you can't change the height of the blades, so you have to change the height of the outfeed table instead. And it does have an adjustment for that, so not a problem. But that will have to be the next thing. It's obviously too low at the moment. I turned it all the way down. We need to turn it up a little bit. And the best way to set the height of the outfeed table is to set the infeed table down to close to its lowest setting, and then put a piece of wood through, which of course will cut the wood to the height of the cutterhead. And then we need to raise the table until it's just barely touching the cut surface of the wood. And then of course we need to do some test cuts and make sure we don't have any snipe, and if we do, tiny bit adjustment up or down or whatever, that'll be the next thing we have to do. So here it is, back in its usual spot, hooked up to the dust collector. Now to set the output feed height, I'm going to take this piece of maple that was left over from some project, and I've lowered the output table down quite low. I'm going to run this across here because it will cut the wood, and then I'll use the height of this wood here to raise the table until it just touches that piece of wood, and then I'll know that the output table is the same height as the blades. So that's the procedure. And I have the guard off right now. I realise that's probably not ideal, well, not what you'd normally do, but I do have a pair of push blocks. I'm not going to get my hands anywhere close to the blade. There is a very, very tiny amount of snipe. It's hardly noticeable. I can barely feel it with my finger, but I do need to raise the table by just a touch, just a very small amount. That is perfectly smooth. I can't feel any snipe at all, so perfect. Absolutely spot on still. So taking the fence off and putting the fence back didn't actually change at all. It's perfectly square already. That's really good. So at this point I'm completely done, finished the upgrade to the helical head. It's really much quieter. It's much smoother. This is actually a really nice result. This is much better than. I actually did this piece of wood previously on the straight heads. I don't know if you can see that, but you can probably see at the end the amount of snipe, but also maybe you can also see the amount of surface defects in it. This one is the one I just did with the helical cutter. And again, it's more about texture. I'm not sure you can really see that, but that feels like it doesn't even need sanding. Like it feels absolutely perfect. Much better than the result I was getting with the straight knives. So awesome. I'm really happy.